Now today we're going over what it takes to replace a timing belt. Now this vehicle has a transverse mounted engine, meaning the accessories, the timing belt is on the side of the engine. So the easiest way to get access to this is by jacking up the vehicle and removing the front wheel. Now if your vehicle has the drive belt and the accessories up front here, it tends to make the job a little bit easier. And if you want a guide on that, I'll also include another video I did some time ago. But essentially all of the steps here are the same. So let's start by removing these plastic pieces. Now the timing belt lives under this plastic cover, so we need to clean all of this up. Drive belt, power steering pump has to be placed to the side. We have a motor mount here, so we need to clean up this entire area. Now if you do not have a belt removal tool, we can still get around it. We have a wrench, a socket, and an extension. That way I have a long handle to break it loose. So right here is our tensioner. And before you remove the drive belt, make sure you just jot down a diagram where the belt lives, or just take a few pictures. Very good time to inspect the belt. Make sure it's not cracked. This is a new belt, but good time to replace it if you do need one. So now we're going to jack up the vehicle and place it on jack stands. I now have a block of wood along with a floor jack underneath the oil pan, and we can remove the passenger side engine mount. Power steering pump, I'm not sure if we'll need to remove it. I'll leave it in just for now. And then you see two timing belt covers. We need to remove these. Each are held on with 5 10mm fasteners. Now I do have one fastener that is behind the tensioner assembly, so let's remove it from the vehicle. And to get better access to everything, there's a little plastic cover that we just need to remove. These are just plastic tabs. Okay, this peels away. And here's the fastener holding on the tensioner. So now we need to rotate the engine clockwise to top dead center. So looking at this cam sprocket, there's an indentation right here, also on top of the sprocket itself, and on the backing plate there's a marking. So this just needs to rotate clockwise, so this meets up with this, and on the other sprocket, same deal. There's an indentation right here, a little hard to see on camera, and then the backing plate marking is right there. So crankshaft pulley, 19mm socket, and rotating clockwise. And to make it a little bit easier to rotate the engine, I'm just using a breaker bar. Now we're going to remove the crankshaft pulley. Now this battery pack is just not strong enough. 1.5 amps, it's not enough power to remove that fastener. I really need a 4 amp battery pack, but I don't have a Craftsman impact gun. So off to the store. So here we go, back from the store, 700 foot-pounds. It should be enough. Holy crap. So here we are about a week later. I got stuck removing the pulley from this Acura. If you're familiar, removing crankshaft pulleys on Acuras and Hondas, it's well known this is very, very difficult. I even rented a crankshaft holding tool. This keeps the crankshaft in place as you try to remove the fastener. Nothing worked, but I did find the answer. It is by far the easiest solution. And this is it. Look at this socket. It's still 19mm, but it is absolutely massive. This is a harmonic balancer removal socket. You can clearly see the difference very quickly. This is roughly 8 ounces. Now look at this monster. Almost 2 pounds. I'll have a link for this in the description box below. but this will work. Okay, this makes all the difference. It is a little expensive. It's roughly 30 bucks. I'll have a link for it in the description box below, but it makes all the difference in the world. No special tools required. You just need an impact. Zip this right off. The only thing I did off camera was soak the fastener with some penetrating oil overnight. That's it. So now we're just removing the lower plastic timing belt cover. And we're inching our way closer to the timing belt. There's also a mount in my case. I just need to remove this and we'll have much better access. So at this point, I'm going to remove, or really unbolt, the power steering pump from the engine. Now I'm leaving the high pressure line intact. Typically it's very easy to tell because the high pressure line is not only metal, but the hosing, the circumference of the hose is incredibly thick compared to your low pressure line. Secondly, I can also replace the fluid. And again, on any vehicle, you want to clean up this entire area. Do yourself a favor, put in the extra minutes, and it makes the job a lot easier. And these are hose removal pliers. I'll have a link for these in the description box below. Let me just see, this is plastic, so you don't want to overdo it. And here's another chance just to show you how on all of these engines you'll find another Q. See this arrow? It marks up with this guy right here. So this tells us and verifies that we're at top dead center. Now we can remove this plate. Okay, this comes off. And if you're curious, this is the crankshaft position sensor on the Acura here. A lot of work to get to if this ever goes bad. Now we're going to remove the hydraulic tensioner. That's this guy right here. You can tell because you see how it's forcing against this bearing, which applies the correct pressure on the timing belt. So it's just held in by two, a little tight here to see, but two 10mm fasteners. Always replace this with a brand new one. Don't reuse these. And now we can remove the timing belt. I have to say, this is the quality you see with Hondas and Toyotas. This is 17 years old, 110,000 miles, and it still is in terrific, terrific shape. And then we just have two idler pulleys to remove. Also, because we're here, great time to replace the water pump. I'm also going to replace, in a separate video, the thermostat. So many ways to drain coolant. The quickest way, remove the lower radiator hose and all of the coolant will quickly drain. Flip side, turn back the peacock here and patiently wait until the coolant drains. And the water pump is simply held on. We have three 10mm fasteners over here on the left and then two on the right. And to quickly show you, these are all of the parts that we removed. Really, it's not too much. Certainly you could do this job yourself, save a lot of money, and just take your time and you can quickly knock it out, or effectively knock it out, I should say. At this point, I'm just going to reinstall everything. We'll start it up and make sure that everything is in good shape. Now, water pump fasteners, they are not very tight, typically roughly 9 foot-pounds from the factory in this case, so do not over-torque them. Now, as you reinstall the timing belt, you want to keep an eye on a couple of things. Of course, make sure that your timing marks are right on the money. And when we're done, we will rotate everything to make sure that we're in good shape. The other thing that tends to help is when you reinstall the belt, leave one of these tensioners a little bit loose, or these idler bearings. Route the belt where it's supposed to go, and then lastly, tighten up one of these bearings, and it should sync up everything really nicely, and then you can pull the pin to the automatic tensioner. So just tightening up this bearing here. And you can see how much tension is now on this belt. Let's rotate the engine a few times, make sure that the timing marks stay in good shape, and then we'll wrap it up. And when it's time to reinstall the crankshaft pulley, you're just going to coat the threads of the fastener with some clean engine oil. Now these are very, very tight from the factory. In my case, it's 180 foot-pounds, and that's pretty normal for many vehicles. Now, you can rent a tool to keep this in place. Again, this was rented from my local parts store. The flip side, as you can see here on the Subaru, there we go. I just created a little system to get around it, just to hold the crankshaft in place as I torqued everything down. So in this case, the breaker bar is holding that tool in place. Okay. So we're almost wrapped up. I'm just going to rotate the engine a number of times, make sure that the belt is seated on properly, and double check our timing marks. So all of the timing marks are lining up perfectly. Also on the crankshaft below, we are at top dead center. So I'm just going to wrap it up off camera and we'll start it up. You hear the whine? I have to add some more fluid. So that whining was because I needed to add some fluid to the power steering reservoir. But everything runs really great. I'm just checking for leaks as the vehicle runs. And like I said, it's really not a hard job. So I hope this gives you a pretty good idea what's involved regarding replacing a timing belt. As always, thank you very much for watching.